All present? Great. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John McCain.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I need approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Kern. Okay, first from Director Kern, a second from Director Campbell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll go right into district recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Hurricane Lane.
I'm never going to live this down, come on, no. Well, thank you. Tonight, I have two different district recognitions. First of all, congratulations to Landon Brainerd for being honored as the High School Educator of the Year for Junior Achievement for the Upper Midwest. So very exciting that he was awarded that honor. The other thing is that this morning, we had just a fabulous morning with our back-to-school kickoff with all of our staff. There are about 1,000 different individuals in the Tornstrom, and our theme this year was #BeBrainerd. And at the kickoff, the Above and Beyond Awards were given this year, and I'd like to recognize this year's recipients. Sandy Loney, a science teacher at Forest View Middle School. Connie Christensen, an executive assistant at the Brainerd Learning Center, and Nicole Harmer, teacher at Brainerd High School. So congratulations to each of them. Yeah, I think I think we had three really surprised people and very honored individuals and who have gone above and beyond every day for kids. So congratulations to them.
Okay, very fun.
That's it.
Thank you. It's now time for public input. Anyone that would like to come up and talk to the board? We'll follow Board Policy 206 and enforce a 3-minute time limit. Is there anyone that would like to speak? And please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Jean Lapka. One-handed.
Yeah.
On August of 2006, 12 years ago, God spoke to me and told me that I should attend as many school board meetings as I could attend. I have stood in this room for the last 12 years as a prayer warrior for everyone in the Brainerd school system. Times have changed, and God has released me from this assignment. After watching the movie War Room, I know that I must ask God to do what only He can do and get out of His way and let Him do it. The Bible says that each of us were created and woven in our mother's wombs, fearfully and wonderfully made. And the Bible also says that God has a plan for each and every one of us. And He also says in the Word that He's given us gifts and talents that are all to be used for His glory. As the building project begins, it really isn't about buildings or parking lots or pools or auditoriums. The most important thing that we must remember is the quality education that each of the children who walk through these doors of all of these buildings deserve. The most important assignment given to all the educators is that each child will be able to discover their gifts and talents and to be able to fulfill the assignments that God has given to them while they're on this earth. I will no longer stand in this room, but my spirit will always be here. God is watching all of us, and someday we will all answer to the Master, Jesus Christ. Even though I will not be in this room at the school board meetings, you can rest assured that my husband Bruce and I will be praying every day for all the staff, all the students, the volunteers, and all the families, and the Brainerd School District board members and their families, and all those who are part of the 4-year project that is going to be going on. We must never underestimate the power of prayer. And in James chapter 5, verse 16, it says that the prayers of a righteous person, only by the blood of Jesus, are very powerful and effective. And I am a prayer warrior, an interceder, and I will continue to pray for everything that happens in the Brainerd Lakes area, but especially in the Brainerd School District 181. Thank you for all this 12 years of being in this room. I've enjoyed being a part of this journey, learning more and more about what happens in the school board meetings. So God bless you all, and thank you for listening. And my driver drove me here today because I can't drive. And I have, this is just, I think I gave this to you before, but this is some prayers that I will be lifting up till I die. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll miss your smiling face in the audience.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the building project update. And I think Chris and Natalie will be coming.
Natalie will be on later.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Again, just giving you a quick update as to where we are in the process. We'll be coming to you on the 10th of September for approval for 3 of the buildings. SD approval, so that would be Nisswa, Harrison, and then we're gonna do the building portion of the new elementary as the site portion progresses. That's lagging a little bit behind, but the building will fit on the site whether we rotate it, mirror it, or flip it in either direction. The program for the most part has been figured out, so that should be able to be approved. Just a quick update, again, Harrison, this is what we're planning to do with the site. And then the floor plans, again, the addition's gonna kind of go to the north east portion of the building there. The new elementary layout. And then Nisswa, again, we're looking to add on to the gym, and we're gonna put most of the addition right there along with an office addition as well. The high school lagging a little bit behind, but mainly because it's a bigger project. It's gonna take a little bit more to progress through SD. To get to where we need to go for approvals on that. But we placed that on the site now, so it you can kind of get an idea what that's gonna mean. Obviously, with South Campus not being modified for a couple years out yet, that road looks like it really doesn't work, but that's gonna be modified in the future. And then, again, performing arts and the music suite up on top with some classroom additions on the north side of the building, and then the pool and gym additions on the south. With the interior model of the CTE area and the additional space added for the commons and breaking that up so it's not just one voluminous space. And this just upper and lower levels of those respective areas. So I don't know if there's any questions, but that was just a quick run through of that as well. In addition, on the high school, we took some tours last week. Tuesday, we went on pool tours and we toured the New Prague Community Center. Shakopee's West Middle School, Edina High School, Chanhassen, and Chaska's pool, which is actually in one of their middle schools, and then Becker High School on the last stop. I think it was a pretty productive tour. Everyone got to kind of see different configurations that really work in a pool environment. Possibly even some things not to do necessarily, but I think we got a lot of good information for the design team to carry those ideas through. And we're having a feedback session tomorrow morning on the pool. And on the theater, which I'll speak to as well, just to gather thoughts of people that went on the tour, just to really get what did you like, what did you not like, what's possible with the budget we have to accomplish as a whole, so. Theaters were on Thursday. We went to Farmington High School, the Ames Center, which is actually a city of Burnsville facility, Waconia High School, Chanhassen High School, and Wayzata High School. Again, saw various theaters. The one thing I think we're learning out there is that your theater may be one of the bigger ones, if not one of the biggest in the state for a high school. Everyone's capacity, even for ones that have balconies, are just over 1,000 seats, and we're obviously going for 1,200 seats, so you'll be a little unique in that respect, but I think we saw a lot of ideas of, again, what to do, what not to do, and got a feel for what that all means, so. I know your band teacher brought his trumpet and tested out the acoustics in each of the spots that we stopped. So got a little idea too, what worked, what didn't, so I know he had a top 1 and 2 off of the ones we were at, so. If we're able just to copy some of those, maybe we'll be successful in that, so.
Bob, do you want to give some of your thoughts at all? Because he went on the tours to the performing arts centers and.
I mean, I thought it was great. I thought it gave us good ideas, and like you say, one of the things that was really surprising was that hardly any of them were over 1,000 seats. I thought some were a little ostentatious, like, was it Waconia with the stone on the side?
That was Chanhassen.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
A little bit over the top.
Yep.
Yeah, but, yeah, I thought we got great ideas.
There'll probably be just another, maybe a smaller group, but there's another round of theaters that we weren't able to get in that day that we'll probably hit as well. Probably on the bigger side, but again, not many of them are over 1,000 seats as well, but they'll also give us some other technological things that we weren't able to see that are a little unique as well out there, so. By the time we're done touring, I think we'll have a good idea just in terms of what's out there, what's possible, and what we want to capture for this facility.
You know, I thought the other thing that was interesting was when we asked, what would you do differently if you could do it over again? And I think one of the biggest things was the orchestra pit.
Yep.
They all said they wish they had made it bigger.
Yeah.
And same with the stage size.
I thought it was interesting how they did different things with the orchestra pits. There were some that were towards the front that opened up, there were some that were towards the back and underneath, some that didn't have orchestra pits. It was interesting to me, how they did that. And another thing that I thought was unique was how some were more conducive to theater and some were more conducive to performing arts, and how we're going to find that balance of what works for both. And the acoustics are a huge piece that people are very concerned about, that whatever we do, that it's got acoustics at least like we've got now, because we have wonderful acoustics. So.
And then last item as it relates to the bond, there's an action item later on your agenda to set the public hearing for property acquisition for the 24th. And we'll obviously talk about that when we get to that action item, but just wanted to bring that up. And then the last thing is we're working with staff to pull together the grants for the safety and security grants that the state of Minnesota brought together. So I think we have a good idea what the projects are. It's kind of a convoluted process, for lack of a better word, in the way the grants have to be submitted, but I think we'll be prepared for that on Wednesday morning, so.
Yeah, we met on those this afternoon, and we were really surprised because there's a narrative piece for each one along with the application. But you can't get the application until 7 o'clock on Wednesday.
Correct.
And so we have to be ready to go with everything punched in, ready to submit it, because it's all on a first come, first serve. And we are hoping to do an application for every building, and so we're thinking that we're gonna have 6 people sitting at a table about 6:30, ready to start with the first round and then do a second round after we get the first one submitted. So we'll see. Hopefully the technology holds at the state level, because we know everybody's gonna be applying for these grants, so. But I do want the board to know that we're trying really hard to be able to add some additional enhancements to our safety and security for each of the buildings. So we're gonna have them submitted on Wednesday, so. So thank you, Chris, for helping us with that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, next up we have approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting on August 13th.
Second.
First from Director Hagel and a second from Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Or minutes are approved. Next up, we have the consent calendar.
I would so move the approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you, Director Kern.
Second?
Thank you, Director Campbell. Any further discussion?
Could I just ask one clarification on the leaves? It appears that we're approving a leave from January of 18, is that correct? Or is that a typo?
Can you help me with that, Jenny?
Yeah, I'm looking real quick.
Oh, January 9th, 18th.
Where do you see that?
Just the top of the list of leaves.
Page 13.
12.
A name?
No, there's no names on these anymore.
Yeah, there's no names. Effective 1/9/18 for 12 weeks. I'm guessing that that's probably a maternity.
But that would be expired.
Last year.
Oh, 18. Oh, is that 19? It should be 19. It should be 19,
Does it say 18?
yeah.
Should be 19.
So January of 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for catching that, yep. So,
Okay, so,
I will amend my motion to the correction that Director Robinson just pointed out
Okay.
to 2019.
thank you.
see, I'll second that amendment. Okay. Yes, thank you, Chris. Director Robinson. Any other discussion? So we have an approval of the consent calendar with the correction of the date of the leave. We have a first from Director Kern and a second from Director Campbell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next up, do we have any site reports or communications? I don't think so. Correct? So we go right into action items. And Sarah Porsche is going to come up and speak to the one-to-one technology plan.
All right, so tonight we are just asking for your approval to move forward with the timeline as presented, as we talked about at the last meeting. Just for a little clarification, the forms and policies we will be working on as a team, and then that is what you will see on, in January for your approval at that time,
And then the devices would come in April.
August.
No, approval
Oh,
of the
approval
devices.
for the devices, excuse me, yes, in April, yeah. I thought you meant the actual devices, not till August.
Have them and hand them out in August.
Correct,
Okay.
And this would be for the high school only.
correct, 9th through 12th right now,
Right, and you went through the details at the last meeting. We just didn't have the
correct.
written thing, so now we had that to review. Okay. So do I have a motion for the approval of the one-to-one technology plan?
I so move approval of the one-to-one technology plan.
Thank you, Director Campbell.
Second.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. I feel like doing a little dance, so, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah, for all your work. And next up, we have Jenny Castle to talk about the food service contract.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Before you tonight for your consideration is the the food service team's tentative agreement that the district and the food service team have reached. The recommended contract was in board book for you to look over, but just to give you the quick highlights of all the changes. We're recommending a 2-year agreement with a 1.75% increase for both 2017-18 and 2018-19. And we've also made some agreed upon changes to the training model for food service that brings us in line with the USDA professional standard guidelines that hadn't been really touched in that contract for over 15 years. So we took a look at that and fixed it. And finally, we did a few minor language clarification items that included removing the fair share fee language. That's now illegal due to a recent Supreme Court decision, and we clarified the amount of reimbursement that food service workers get for the non-slip shoes that they get. So that was a practice that was already occurring, we just clarified it in the language. So with that, it was pretty straightforward, not very many changes, but do you have any questions?
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the contract as presented
Okay.
for food service.
Second?
Okay, a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Kern. Any future, any other additional questions or comments? Okay, and I think we need a roll call vote for this.
I believe so, yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Sue Kern,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Chris Robinson,
Yes.
Reed Campbell,
Yes.
all in favor?
Great, so contract is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then next up, we have the second reading of policy 610, field trips. And we made some changes to this.
We did, yeah, thank you. The policy that's before you, if you remember at the last meeting, we had the first reading of this policy, and we agreed at that time that since it's quite significant in change, that we would be having 3 readings prior to approval of this policy. At the last meeting, there was a number of recommendations brought forward from the Board of Education, and I believe that all of those recommendations that came from the board have been addressed in the change that you're looking at tonight. Also, I brought forward this policy to the administrative team. They gave a few further pieces as far as the procedures, which I'll go over in just a minute. And we have made those changes as well and sent this out to the administrative team to look at. Basically, what the changes are from the last meeting, the general statement talks definitely about the fact that this is for students of ISD 181 only. If it's going to expand at all, there will need to be board approval. There will be that recommendation that comes forth, and the board will give that approval. We also talked about procedures, and at the very end of the policy, we did add the procedures, but they're not actually part of the policy. One of the things that you had asked is the fact that things might be different in the elementary school versus the high school and so on. And so the procedures that, that we have at the very end of it are as follows. First of all, when leaving the school grounds with a group of students, a roster of every student must be with the teacher, advisor, and coach. And it'll have to be gone through and double-checked to make sure that each child and person is on the bus. Secondly, the attendance will be taken at every stop prior to the vehicle departing from the location and leaving for the next destination. And even when we went on our field trips this last week, we did that every time. We made sure that every single person was there, checked them off, and then made sure that before the bus left that everybody was there. The third one addresses what you had talked about, how it might be different for different age levels of students. And so age level appropriate measures as determined by building principals and/or the athletic director or activities director will be followed. So if an elementary school says we want to have a buddy system or whatever, that they'll follow that in their school, but they can have it more age appropriate. And then lastly, number 4, if a parent or legal guardian is picking up a student following an activity, the parent or legal guardian must personally sign off their child from the coach, advisor, or teacher's roster. What the principals were saying is that there's always a roster with a line after it, and the parents would actually sign off on the roster if they were taking their child home with them that night. And so those were the recommendations brought forward, and that I've had really positive conversation with the administrators thus far. Are there any questions that the board has before we continue to bring it forward for a third reading?
I had one comment on number F on the second page.
Yep.
It's kind of confusing when it's all jumbled in here together, so I thought we could have that first sentence, an employee must not use a personal vehicle to transport one or more students for purposes of a field trip, and then maybe put the word like exceptions, and then have 1 and 2 bulleted out, just to clarify it a little bit better.
Absolutely. Yep.
Otherwise, it looks really good.
Just had, for clarity purposes on the procedure of number 2, so is there intent to have more, another document or something, that if we're gonna have by age group, what that process is, so that we make sure we have a tight attendance process?
I think 1 and 2 go together, I think is how I was reading it, but we certainly could clarify that there is a roster of each student that's gone over. And they go through that roster of each student at every single stop before the bus or the school vehicle or whatever it is leaves. And so that attendance is taken on that roster.
Yeah, so on the first time, it was pretty specific about even, I remember something about having to make eye contact,
Right.
you know, so in this case, it seems to be a bit loose in that the teacher or a chaperone could be at the front of the bus and just yelling off a student's name, and they took attendance, but yet it seems like it needs to be tighter to make sure that we don't have someone yelling the name yay or yes or whatever. And we had it was a little more defined before, and it seems like it needs more than this unless there's more coming.
No, this is where it's at right now, so if you'd like that piece tighter, we certainly can. I guess I kind of got the sense that night that maybe I was making it too tight when we talked about a buddy system and some of those kinds of things. And so just visiting with the administrative team, this is where we came at this point, but we certainly can do that and tighten that one up closer to what it was before. With the eye contact piece where they need to, yep.
Yeah, and then that was my impression as well, that the idea of number 3 on the procedures is where the key personnel at the building can add those additional steps, whether it's gonna be a required buddy system, eye contact. Because contrasting first graders going on a field trip once or twice a year as opposed to our high school activities that are going twice a week, you know, what procedures do we need to have in place? Seems like we want to defer to our professionals there to identify, is it enough to simply run down the roll and, you know, a coach is going to recognize voices and as compared to our first graders or younger students?
It seems like we should see what that is on number 3.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I don't think we want to have the 6 elementary principals come up with their own process as an example.
Be the same.
It seems like we should have that, and maybe just, if it's going to be a separate document, fine, just include it in here. So that we're approving that whole process.
I think what I sensed with the administrative team when we talked about that how do you write something into your procedures that addresses every situation? Like a science field trip might be different than a sports team where there's just a few kids on the bus versus second graders that are going on a field trip. And it was like, how do we make the procedure fit for every single group, because they're all so different with different age groups and so on. And so we didn't really know how to do that. And I think that's why everybody felt really comfortable with let the building principals and the teachers decide what they feel is necessary for their particular buildings and age groups. But
Yeah, I'm not comfortable, you know, I'd like to at least see what they're, I trust that they'll develop something, but this, in my mind, is very vague. We're gonna take
Yeah,
attendance.
things could slip by again, yeah.
And I don't think we're addressing, potential issues.
Okay.
And I don't think it has to be that elaborate. I agree with Director Robinson that it's different, age group, those kind of things, but I don't think it would be that difficult.
Okay. So a little bit closer to what we had before.
Yeah, I think just, indicating that we're going to take attendance is not, it's not enough.
Okay. All right, I will bring it back.
We took attendance before in a, previous situation, and it wasn't solid enough.
That's right. Okay. It may be 2 meetings before we bring this back for the third reading and approval, because I'd like to bring it to the administrative team
Sure.
and have that conversation, so if that's,
Well, I wonder if it's as simple as taking the more detailed approach we had looked at last month and turning that into a checklist, that the building principals can indicate, these are the procedures that'll be used for this trip. We're gonna have a buddy system, we're gonna, have a physical, visual attendance, and we can ramp up the diligence that's required based on the age and the locations, and so that we can see some of the proposed steps, but the building principals and/or those supervising can identify from that checklist what they're gonna do on a given trip.
Okay.
But that's, does that work?
Yeah.
okay,
I'm not real keen on a buddy system at any age level, just on top of that. I think, as adults, we have to be the ones responsible, not the elementary, not at the senior high level either. Yeah,
okay, let me work on that.
I'm getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah, we're getting close.
And you still need approval for,
Yeah,
The
for the
second reading.
second reading.
Yep.
right, so I'll make a motion that we approve the second reading.
Thank you.
Director Nystrom.
Second.
Thank you. Director Robinson. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, approval of date for public hearing of property acquisitions for September 24th. And are you going to handle that, or do you want Chris?
Chris talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Natalie, do you want to add anything to it as far as,
No, I think we'll be ready for
Yep.
them.
do you want to come up and just tell them a little bit about where you're at on property acquisition and?
Sure. We're just finishing identifying at each site, and then once we're done, probably after the Labor Day weekend here, we'll start contacting the property owners. And about 10 days prior to, we'll put out the public hearing, the notices, and make sure that it's, broadcast so that anyone who wants to speak at the public hearing can come and do that. So then we'll get ready.
So can you describe that process? You're going to identify the properties that need to be purchased.
Yes.
And so what does the public hearing do?
You have to have a public hearing. So you have to do a publication of it in the paper, and so that it just invites people in to give you some feedback. If the public wants to speak, if it's someone whose houses we are looking at acquiring, or if they just want to speak to the board on how the process goes, then they're just able to do so at that time.
So will it be more the property owner, or will it be the public that would come in?
Anyone can come at the public hearing. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just getting the feedback. It's more of a, community involvement, just making sure anyone's heard who wants to speak towards the public process of acquiring property. And so we'll just start there. But meanwhile, we hope to talk to everyone individually too, so they know that it's coming. Have that conversation with them, and then that would start the formality of the process at the public hearing. And then for 30 days after, then you accept written, so people can speak at the public hearing, or for 30 days after, we have to take input, written input from the public too. and
do
then you'll
we
come back
respond-
together.
We respond back to each of those.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll respond back to each one, and then after that, it'll come to you for a formal vote to acquire the properties.
So we don't have a time
Start working
on
with
this, I noticed, and I know we have a regular school board meeting at 6. Is this gonna be earlier than that, or what were you thinking of? Or we're gonna start the public hearing at 6 and then run into our public meeting? Or
Does that
into
work
our
for, I
school board
mean,
meeting?
How is it normally
a lot of
done?
times it is done first, and you don't respond that night, you just accept the input from the public. So you could do that and just run into your public input on other things too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as part of the regular meeting then, the public input piece? Okay.
Yeah,
So at the 6 o'clock meeting, or you'd want us to start earlier?
we could do either way. If you guys want to start earlier, that's fine, otherwise 6 o'clock. There's not usually a lot of people that come out and speak. A lot of them like to, if they want to, they might write to the school board instead, or they have that opportunity to come and speak too.
As far as publication of it, though, doesn't it need to be separate from the school board meeting, so it doesn't get lost? Publication of a public hearing?
Well, we'll just have to declare what time. So if you want to bump it or start it at 5:30 and then officially start your meeting at 6, or if you wanted just to start at 6 and then do your
Okay, just start at 6.
board meeting after. What time are you thinking?
6.
6 o'clock, okay.
And just part of the regular meeting, is that what you'd like to do? Part of the public input portion?
I think that's good.
You all okay with that?
Yeah, it seems like in the past when we've done like the tax hearings, we've always set a separate time with the idea that they would be adjacent. So whether it's 5:45 and 6 o'clock meeting start or similar. Since our schedule says that the regular meetings will start at 6, it seems like we should set a time, if even 15 minutes early, to conduct it separately. Sure.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if this public hearing needs to be a separate, it seems like it may need to be a separate meeting almost. For, like I said before, for publication purposes, so that's clear. So maybe we should do the 5:45 and then
45.
6.
5:45 and then a 6 o'clock regular meeting? Okay. So
Okay. Okay, I need a motion for approval of that date and time.
So moved.
Second?
First from Director Campbell, a second from Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So our public hearing will be at 5:45 on September 24th, before the regular board meeting. Okay, next up, we have approval of a lease agreement with National Cooperative Leasing for the purchase of the planetarium projection equipment. Marcy Lord is going to speak to that.
Yes.
You just kind of magically appear. You're so good at that. Thank you.
I actually have been in touch with Brian Wallace. I did ask him to come tonight.
He's there.
Yes, and for questions on the equipment side, I can speak to the financing side, but if you have any questions on the equipment side, I did ask him to come. So he's looking at some planetarium equipment that is around, as you can see, the equipment costs $346,550. And we do receive funding from Sourcewell, innovation funding. Last year, we received about $206,000, and 18-19, we are supposed to receive $292,000. So part of that funding for this year is going to go towards this planetarium equipment. And then we did the 2-year lease in order to cover the rest of the cost. And Sourcewell has said that we will receive funding for the following 2 years. We received National Cooperative Leasing was a recommendation of Sourcewell. It's one of their contracts. I did also reach out to another company just to kind of see what, Brian and I discussed that the interest seemed very high, you know. So I did reach out, and it is comparable to another company. There was the concern of, you know, this is a lot of interest, but it is being run through the grant. It's not something that the school would actually pay. So that's kind of where we got to this point of, yep, we want to move forward with this so he can get his equipment. As I said, it's 2 years, so the first payment due is August 1st. So next year, we would receive the funding and then make the payment, and the following year, like so.
And then at the end, it's ours.
At the end, we buy it for $1. Correct.
And is that at 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the rate on it?
You know, it comes out to about 25,000, and I did the math, it's like 11%.
11.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems high.
It does. But like I said, I reached out to another firm, and they kind of gave me, they were within a couple $1,000s of this same proposal.
And the money from Sourcewell will end up covering the entire cost.
Exactly. Exactly.
Brian, what happens to the old equipment?
So, you want me to sit down here for the thing? Well, so this will be actually the second upgrade since the original installation 14 years ago. The old equipment, some of it will be traded in for the new equipment, but a lot of it isn't usable. I think they're going to reuse maybe the lens on the current projector, but most of it is computer equipment, and once it gets 4 or 5 years old, you know, what can you do with it? But actually, through the negotiations of this new system, what they're going to allow me to do is to keep the computer system and actually put the new software on it. So I'll kind of have a workstation plus the new system as well. It's very expensive, but it's kind of like going from a standard definition TV to a high def. And many of you have been in the planetarium already and know it's a fantastic facility, but it's just going to jump to a whole new level with this system. So I'm really excited about it.
Do you ever pinch yourself and say, after this thing, the program was dormant for so many years?
Exactly, yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, this is my 32nd year coming into the teaching year, and it just seems like every year now kind of gets more exciting for me because it's, I think, just to bring you all up to speed on the project itself, the grant money covers all transportation for kids from the 5-county region, all of NJPA's Region 5. And so last year, we had over 6,000 kids come through the planetarium. I mean, a number of those kids are our own Brainerd kids, and we use a lot of the time. But to be able to impact that many kids in their first year was, I think, pretty extraordinary, and I'm really looking forward to year 2. It's just gonna balloon. It's just gonna be a lot of fun.
You're not gonna wanna retire.
Well, I know, I look at that and I think, wow, I don't have a whole lot of time left, but we're gonna have some fun while I'm still here, so, yeah.
Do you want
And-
to talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing different this year, like with your advisory committee and some of that to enhance?
Yeah, one of the suggestions by NJPA was to form an advisory committee from teachers and administrators to help guide some of the decisions leading into the future. So that was formed actually with the help of Cindy Swenson from NJPA, and we had a meeting, talked about possibilities of this facility. And, you know, some of those schools are driving up to an hour, maybe a little more than an hour to get here. And so one of the ideas that came out of that committee meeting was to form kind of a package deal. You know, what else could students do while they're here in Brainerd? And some of the really cool things came out of that was, one of them was, you know, kind of a partnership with the Arboretum. So that's going to help benefit them. The transportation will still be covered through my grant money to help them, or to pay for the transportation from wherever they're coming from and the Arboretum. Last year, Pequot kids came and they actually used Costco as one of their stops, and the Arboretum as well. And then, right now, we're creating this lab space in Forest View as another station, if you will, for kids to experience hands-on activities through, I think it's Makerspace. So we're trying to create a number of opportunities for the kids, not only to be impacted by the planetarium, but also use our school forest and those other items as well. And I think it's just gonna, it's really gonna take off this year.
I agree.
Yeah, and I kind of feel, I told a group of people last week, we had a group of the tech mobile coaches, which is another NJPA project. And so I said, I kind of feel like a grandfather. When the kids come in, I get to play with them for about an hour, hour and a half, and then send them back with their parents, and it's just that much fun. And the way that room impacts kids is just extraordinary. So this new equipment, not only will it be updated computer system, but the projection equipment will just take it to a whole new level.
So
So
how
come
long
out
do you
and see
think
it.
it'll be before it's obsolete?
Before it's obsolete?
Yeah.
Well, the projectors are set for a very long time.
Okay.
The computer system, the backbone of it will most likely need to be updated every, 6 years maybe at the most, on a computer.
And the
We might be able
projector
to
is
squeeze
the
more.
big cost of this.
Oh, the projector, yeah, they're crazy expensive. But it's new technology, they are laser projectors, and there's no bulbs to replace. I think the lifespan is something 15 to 20 years on them, so they'll well outlive the computer system. Yeah.
How have we funded in the past? Have we been leasing, renting?
Well, it really wasn't funded. I mean, my whole position is covered through this grant, or through this innovation funding. It's not really a grant, but so my entire position is covered. Prior to last year, the use was very limited. We would take kids in there for a few weeks a year. I think the total time would total to between 2 and 3 months. The rest of the time, it was not used. It wasn't utilized. And that was on the heels of the big cuts in 97, is that when it was?
07.
Or 07, yeah, sorry, 07. And I could talk for a long time here, so, but one of the plans is to have this new system installed yet in September. Cross our fingers and hope that happens. And if that happens, I can prepare a show in the fall for the public, and then also a holiday show. And I know some of you have attended those, and those are free and open to the public. So that's a public outreach part of the grant itself.
Great.
What else you want to know?
Marcy, do you think there's any other way of financing it than 11%, or do they change the price if you don't go through?
We talked about even, no, it's okay. We talked about even could the district upfront the cost, but it's so hard when the grant comes the following years, then we're crossing years. So this was the best case scenario that we came up with.
And they only approve so much money through their innovation program, and they wanted to make, I think Sourcewell really kind of gets it. They understand the impact that this facility has and into the future, so they wanted to figure out a way to make this happen, and the only way that they could kind of figure that out is to do a short-term loan or lease like this. Am I accurate with that? I mean, you were in on those meetings, I think.
In on those meetings, but
Yeah.
Brian, I'm just so excited that you're willing to do this again and to bring back life to this incredible facility
Right,
that we
yeah.
have at Forest View. And so it's really fun to see you so excited about it. And I know you and Tim have come and presented to Sourcewell a couple
Yep.
different times, and you've got the whole region really excited about the opportunities. And if a children's museum does come to fruition too, how can that all correlate together and be part of that bigger, grander opportunity? So thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
Brian.
You do a great job when you're in there, so.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any more questions, or? All right.
Okay.
So I'll let you guys take care of the business part of it.
Thanks, Brian. Do we have a motion to approve the lease?
That's what move, approve the lease.
Dr. Campbell?
Second?
Thank you, Director Hagelin. Further discussion?
I'll just note that I'll abstain from voting as an employee of Sourcewell.
Okay, so we have first from Director Campbell, a second from Director Hagelin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. So it passed 5-0 with one abstention.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So now we move into the informational part of our meeting, and Tim Murtha is going to talk about curriculum. You're not quite as quick as Marcy.
In more ways than one. Sorry to keep you waiting. Is a follow-up to last school board's conversation about the staff development that was going into the technology adoption for the district. I thought I would share with you both the rubric and the checklist that the teacher teams are starting to use to create the digital courses for the high school. So I offer this in support of the one-to-one initiative that you approved earlier this evening. So what you see is essentially a more detailed version of the curriculum adoption process that we've used at the district advisory committee and with the curriculum leader groups for the last couple of years. But we've codified it in a contract form that allows teams to get together, put forth to get a proposal, get some approval to get working on it, and then bring back a product to us to evaluate. And this would be the work done by the district advisory committee and by the school board. So once they've completed it, what they have is the rubric which we'll use to vet the product that's brought forward. And at the conclusion of that process, when that product is accepted, that's when the stipend gets paid out. What this does is it differentiates the work that we're asking teachers and teacher teams to do. There are some teams ready to move faster and get at this and get it going and get it implemented. This allows them to do so. So this kind of takes the brakes off of them, lets them go full speed, whereas those other groups which still need a little bit more time to develop some more capacity for the development of the curriculum still can have the support from my office and from other resources in order to move more methodically through that. So I just wanted to address the questions that had been brought forward at last month's meeting with these two documents.
Just a question, when you go through this rubric, does every line, they have to meet expectations before the whole thing gets approved? Is that how it would work?
I don't think they all have to meet. I think we need to have a conversation about which ones are the priority standards there that they have to meet. I would say that certainly there should be no more than one that does not meet expectations, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm willing to proffer, approval of certain projects under the condition that they add one thing or they make a recommendation. As you can tell by the rubric, this is not a small process. There's an immense amount of work that the teacher teams do. As with all the processes and all the curriculum we try to bring forward to DAC, all that is normally stuff that goes on the background that people don't really see occurring. I don't bring anything forward to the district advisory committee that I haven't been working with the teachers with for a long time. So acceptance is always a high probability because we try to ensure that there's validation for the work that they do. Nobody feels good about bringing something forward and having it turned down, even if it's appropriate to have it turned down. We want to make sure that the product we bring forward is very good and has our kids' best interests at heart. That's it.
Questions? Okay. Thank you. Business service report. Although I saw you walking up this time. Most of the time, my head is down and I look up and you're there, so.
There. I don't have since we don't have it up on the board, I'll just try to walk you through the financial report. This is the first report we've had, so I wanted to take my time on, so the first column has what fund. So general fund is Fund 01, food service fund is 02, community service fund is 04, building construction fund is 06, debt service fund is 07, post-employment benefits trust fund is 45, and then post-employment debt service is Fund 47. And then at the very bottom, it breaks out, so what is the, 1 dash dash, what does that mean? 1 dash dash is salaries and wages, 2 dash dash is employee benefits. And this is all how the state takes our data. I didn't make these up on my own. 3 dash dash is purchase service, so contracted services, anytime we have somebody come in. 4 dash dash is supplies and materials. The 5s are capital expenditures. 7's debt service payments. 8, other expenditures, and then 9 is other financing uses. And then I did put that the fund totals are the ones that don't have any type of number indicated in the object. So that second column has 17-18 July activity. So last year, what did we spend in those areas? The third column is 17-18 July percent. So what we spent in July compared to what the revised budget was. We spent 2.25% of the revised budget at this time last year. The fourth column, 18-19 original budget, that is what you approved back in June for our budget. The 18-19 July activity is last month's activity compared to, you can compare it to the 17-18. And then the last column is 18-19 July percent. Same thing, it's comparing the percent to the original budget. Eventually, we'll get to the point where it's comparing to the revised budget when I do that budget revision, but for right now, it's the original budget. One of the things I wanted to point out, I know Lane questioned right away was, wow, we did 2.25% last year and we're only at 1.61. It's due to the timing of payments. So we had 2 large payments last year that were made in July that were not made until August. So you'll see that catch up on the next month's report. I don't know if there's any other specifics you guys would like me to go over, but I will in the future try to draw attention to those. For example, the 2 payments, you'll see it's in the contracted service, the 300s. Otherwise, any other feedback, I will welcome, if you want to see something else on this report or would like additional information, just let me know. You'll see this every month now.
Marcy, under debt service fund 7 dash dash, it went down significantly from last year. Is there a reason for that?
So principal went up, interest went down.
Oh,
So when we make our principal payment, you'll see that it's going to be about the same.
Marcy, on the second column, just looking at the general fund for an example. So we had July activity of 393,000, and the 0.87% is a percent of what?
The revised budget for 100s last year, so all our salaries and wages.
Okay, and so on the far right column, the 0.95 is a percent of total budget?
Of the original budget, yes.
Okay. And the July activity is actual, the 430,000?
Correct.
Is it possible to add another column of what I don't know if you would just take the 45 million and divide it by 12, but to see what the monthly budget is versus the annual?
I was actually going to ask that because I could have next month a August activity and then a fiscal year-to-date activity, both, if you would like.
it'd be great.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
really good.
That can be done.
To the budget, though?
Yes,
So you're going to add 2 columns then?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Do you want to give them just a little bit of a heads up on the enrollment?
yeah,
too?
that's my next one. And then next month, you will see a actual report rather than an update. I had put something together with the help of Sue. However, we're hesitant to present anything in writing because until the kids actually come here and we can confirm the count, I'd hate to present something that said, hey, we're up, X number of kids. So as of right now, we are up, but that is before we, actually look and see who's showing up. So next month, you will see an actual report that would show where did we end the year at last year, what is in our current budget, and then what, as of mid-September, are we looking at?
So right now, we're up compared to our current budget?
Yes,
Or- okay.
yes.
We're cautiously optimistic.
So if we could go back to the financial report just briefly. So as I understand it, one of the motivators is the feedback that we received from the bond rating agencies about the
Correct.
board's oversight of the financials.
Correct.
And as I would guess that what you'd say is that this meets at least the minimum of what they expected for us to be reviewing monthly. So to supplement this, could we develop some charts or graphs to go along for those of us that might be more visual? We want to see trend lines or how we're doing?
Yeah.
Is that a major undertaking, or is this spreadsheet, you can just pull it in?
No, I can certainly, you tell me what you want to see and I can put it on there.
Yeah, I don't want to create a tremendous amount of work for it. It's a great step forward, but I think that would be helpful, just to show how we're doing against budget or against past years or.
Yep. Certainly.
Any other questions for Marcy? Anything you'd like to add? Okay.
That's all I got.
The radio spot was great, inviting people to come and sign up with our schools, yeah.
Okay, so now I'll turn it over for the superintendent report.
All right, well, thank you very much. We've talked a lot about most of the things that I had on here. I do want to just give the board, as I'm looking at my little sheet here, an update on kind of some of the things that are ahead of us in the coming week. It's hard to believe that next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, that all of our kids are going to be here, and it was really exciting today to have all of our staff back. And so just fun to have 1,000 people in Tornstrom and all the energy and excitement. It was just an awesome day. Speaking of the kickoff, today was neat. Our theme was #BeBrainerd, and talking about how grateful we are for the many gifts that we've been given as a school district, and really what an incredible school district we have. And so it was fun to be able to have some of those conversations, to have more of a serious kickoff this year, but then at the end we had a little bit of fun as well, and we'll put our little thank you notes on the website, I guess. So Heidi and I had fun doing that for the staff. But one of the things that was different at today's kickoff, we did it a little bit different than we have in the past, and that is last year with all of the issues that the school district was dealing with regarding mental health. As we talked about at the last meeting, we had a number of people, in fact 9 people from our school district, that were trained in a program called Make It Okay. And some of the people that were trained in it are Corey Reynolds, Andrea Rusk, Dan Fisher, Trudy Storbakken, Amy Jamber. Jenny, I know you were trained in it as well, along with many, many people from the community. And what it was an opportunity for us to talk about the stigma of mental health and what some of the signs of mental health are, and how we as practitioners, how one of the things they actually talked about is that 1 in 5 people will either struggle with mental health of some sort themselves, or somebody very near and dear to them will have, that struggle at some point in their life, and how we need to be able to talk about it, and some of the warning signs that we should look for, or some of the things that we should be listening for if we hear from a colleague, a student, or someone in our school. Also, just the opportunity that how important it is that if we do hear these things, to not take it lightly or brush it under the bed, but instead to see to it that we're addressing them appropriately. And we talked about what we should and should not say, and how we can deal with it as a school district moving forward as we come forward in the school year. Today, it was really very nice to have Corey, Andrea, Dan, Trudy, and Amy do about a 30-minute presentation for the entire staff at the school. And there's going to be a lot more education throughout the year on this. And so I want to thank all of those people, and Jenny too, you went through the training, for going through the training and being willing to have those conversations as we move forward this year. But that was a huge piece of our kickoff, and one that I think the staff really appreciated, because last year was very hard, and we want to be able to stop it and to be able to address when people are in need. And so thank you to everyone for doing that. Any questions about Make It Okay? I should tell you that the program is, Essentia Health had brought it forward, and when that group of, 45 or 50 of us met at the college a few weeks ago, there was a lot of talk about it. They had the training later on with the Make It Okay, and just really nice to have that representation from the school district. So, couple other things that I wanted everyone to just be reminded of is that next Tuesday is the first day of school. And I know each of the board members loves to go to the elementary schools to be there for the children. And between 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning, Director Robinson is going to be at Baxter. Director Nelson and myself are going to be at Garfield. Director Campbell at Harrison, Director Kern at Lowell, Director Hagelin at Nisswa, and Director Nystrom at Riverside. So it's going to be a really fun day to see the children and all the staff and the families. It's, I love that day. So any questions about the back to school? All right, last thing, there are a number of meetings going on with the facilities, as Chris talked a little bit about. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. We're going to be having the task force from the swimming pool meet at 8:30 for an hour to debrief our tours that we took on Tuesday. And at 9:45, members from the Performing Arts Task Force are going to be meeting as well. And at 10:45 is the project oversight team. After these three meetings tomorrow, we're going to be locking ourselves in a room and working on these grants and getting them ready so that we can put those, go through the process on Wednesday morning, and so that we can make the applications for those safety and security grants that are available through the state. On Thursday, the core teams are going to be meeting again. At 9:45, we'll be meeting in room 200 with the new elementary in Baxter. At 11 o'clock, the Brainerd High School will be meeting again and getting some of the final details so that we can get the plans finalized at the next board meeting. Harrison will be meeting at 12:45 and Nisswa at 2 o'clock. And so a lot of really exciting opportunities going on this week, and we're moving forward so that we are ready to go out for bids and have groundbreaking in the spring. So that's my report.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's moving ahead.
It's moving ahead.
Okay. There are no standing committee reports, and I did at the end of our closed session at the last meeting give a summary, but I'm going to give the summary again and just add a little bit. On August 13th, the board met with Superintendent Lane Larson in closed session to complete a performance evaluation. We rated her performance as very good and commended her on her interpersonal skills, her excellent and tenacious work on the successful building bond referendum, on building relationships, both internally and externally, and on fiscal management. I've put together some goals that we can use, that we should use based on the feedback I received from you, and these can still be adjusted after you have a chance to look at them, but I'll just read them and then we can get copies out to the board.
Sure.
Okay. Goal 1, based on the feedback from the Warner study, bring recommendations to the board that will help to balance the budget and create a model that is sustainable for the future. A, implement a new and more efficient organizational structure. B, collaborating with relevant stakeholders, creating a marketing plan to increase enrollment. C, to create sustainability in the cost of employees' total compensation packages as contracts renew. Goal 2, oversee the construction process to ensure timely completion, minimal impact to school activities, and to maximize the use of funding. Delegate day-to-day work to other school leaders. And 3, goal number 3, work with school leaders to develop a 4-year plan to improve educational results and career and technical education workforce readiness. So it's a lot, but it is over a period of years, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, we can have those sent out to the board and just make sure, and if you have any changes, send them back and we'll work on it. And then the other thing we'll do is we'll work on her 3-year contract.
Great.
So, excited, I almost said at the meeting this morning that, and we have a superintendent here for the 3rd year in a row.
Heidi said it.
Did she?
Yeah,
Okay.
she went off script.
Okay, good. Okay.
It was fun.
Okay, we have some future board and committee meetings. Obviously, September 4th, next Tuesday, is the first day of school. September 10th, we have a 6 PM regular school board meeting. September 24th, we have the 5:45 public hearing and a 6 PM board meeting. September 30th is the MAZA conference at Madden's. And November 6th is election day. Okay, is there any other business before we need to go into closed session?
Nelson, one other date.
Okay,
October 4th at 5:30 is the Brainerd High School Distinguished Hall of Fame
okay,
banquet. And there will be 3 people this year, Scott Likens, Steve Lipinski, and Mary Tornstrom.
wonderful.
5:30, and tickets are for sale on the BPSF website.org.
Okay,
That'll be a fun night.
yes.
It always is.
Grandview. It's gonna be at Grandview Lodge,
Okay,
right? Or is it at the Luminary
I think
Front?
it's Craig, isn't it? No, I can't say.
last year, or 2 years,
It's switched back and forth, and I can't remember which one it is.
Last year it was at Grandview.
I'll send it out in your memos.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Okay.
Where is it? Grandview, okay. Thanks.
Okay, so do we have any other business before we move into closed session? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3C3 to consider the acquisition of property. While in closed session, the school board will be considering an offer to purchase the property described as 1609 Oak Street, Brainerd, Minnesota. Is anyone willing to make a motion to close the meeting pursuant to the law I cited?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Director Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor of going into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we're moving into closed session. Thank you, everyone.